Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to the First Steps webinar, Supporting Your Family Through COVID-19. My name's Beth Ruffle.
And I'm Nikki Harding.
And we're both clinical psychologists working in First Steps Community Psychology Service in Hackney. We will also be joined later by Hannah Morgan, who's also a clinical psychologist within our team. And we have two colleagues working hard in the background, Francesca and Mel, to help us do this webinar today. The webinar today has two parts. Part one will focus on understanding your own and your children's feelings in relation to COVID-19. And part two will be about how you can support your children's emotional well-being and managing difficult feelings relating to COVID-19. This will be followed by a question and answer session in which we'll be answering your questions. So please send these through in the chat function during the presentation. We'll also be sending you a copy of today's slides along with a resource pack to accompany the issues discussed in today's webinar. If you're watching this as a recording online, the Q&A session won't be available, unfortunately. We'll also kindly remind you not to make your own recording of today's presentations, but that a recorded version will be available after today, which we will upload onto our website. So we're going to begin by acknowledging the current context that COVID-19 has created. The global pandemic has changed our lives in multiple ways, and many of us are living a life that's unrecognisable from the life that we had before. It has meant a total change to our routines, disconnection with our support networks, and a 24-hour lockdown in our homes. For many parents, this has meant merging home life and work life, as well as supporting children to access education remotely. Families are spending all of their time together in the same four walls, with almost no engagement with the outside world. The situation is constantly changing and therefore brings with it a lot of uncertainty, making it impossible to plan or make decisions, and instead we've had to react and adapt at a rate that is much faster than usual. COVID-19 has also exposed the social and economic inequalities and vulnerabilities that exist within our communities, with the reported figures relating to the disproportionate deaths occurring within the Black and ethnic minority communities, as well as people with disabilities and chronic health conditions. So it's no surprise that this has been an extremely difficult time for families and children and has caused a lot of stress in our homes across the country. At First Steps, this is the first time that we've had to advise families about a global pandemic. This is new to us, but the feelings it has brought with it are familiar to us, and we offer family support with managing these sorts of feelings all the time as part of our work. So we hope to use the next hour to explore this in more detail and give you some tools to manage these feelings. So part one, understanding your own and your child's feelings. So we're going to begin by talking about the feelings that COVID-19 has brought with it. COVID-19 has caused a lot of stress. And although stress means different things to different people, it is normally associated with negative emotions that are experienced frequently and for an extended period of time. It is associated with emotions such as anxiety, uncertainty, worry, loss, sadness, anger, and frustration. These are also common feelings that have come up during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is important to note that COVID-19 has not just caused children stress, but also positive emotions such as excitement at a new routine, happiness that they're able to spend more time with their family and at home, and for some, a reduced pressure due to not having to go to school. But as the focus of today's webinar is how to manage the negative impact of COVID-19, we will start by taking a closer look at each of the negative feelings in turn. So anxiety. We might know this as other things such as worry, nervousness, or fear. There are lots of good reasons to feel anxious at the moment. Anxiety relating to the virus itself, being infected or infecting others. Anxiety about breaking rules and the repercussions of this. Anxiety caused by the stories we are hearing and images we are seeing on the TV and social media, as well as being confronted with things we see when we go out in our community, of people wearing masks and gloves and social distancing. Anxiety also is associated with the necessary changes to our behaviours, such as washing our hands more frequently, wearing masks, keeping a distance from others, and changing the way we do things like using public transport differently or going to the shops. In terms of school, there may be anxiety relating to missing out on education or starting a new school year without actually physically being at school to finish the last. And at home, there may be family worries about parents going back to work or being out of work due to lockdown. And the lockdown has also meant that everything's gone online, and there are anxieties relating to engaging with these new platforms and with the information on social media. So what does anxiety feel like? It feels like a churning feeling in your stomach. It can be called butterflies. Feeling lightheaded, dizzy or sick. Feeling restless or unable to sit still. Having headaches, backaches or other aches and pains. It can be associated with a fast thumping or irregular heartbeat. It can also cause sweating or hot flushes. It can cause problems sleeping or needing to go to the toilet more or less often. So what does anxiety look like in children? So children might be more clingy, wanting to be near parents more of the time. They may be restless, inattentive, or have poor focus. They may be more quiet and withdrawn than normal. They may be complaining of headaches or stomach aches. They may not want to do the things they normally enjoy. They may be having more frequent tantrums or being irritable or crying. They may refuse to do schoolwork and have difficulties transitioning between activities in the day, having difficulties settling down for bed at night. And also they may have high expectations for themselves or others and put a lot of pressure on themselves. Another feeling that's come with COVID-19 is anger, which can be called things like frustration, irritability or rage. And the pandemic has given us good reasons to feel angry. We are facing a lot of restriction and we've lost all control and choice about what we do and where we go. We are helpless and unable to do anything to change the situation. We may feel angry about the behaviour of others or the decisions being made. We may have had our plans cancelled and are unable to make new plans anytime soon. Things are also constantly changing and we're having to adapt very fast and immediately, which can cause frustration. We're also spending 24/7 with the same people with little respite or other stimulation, which can cause frustration also. So what does anger feel like? It feels like a churning feeling in your stomach, a tightness in your chest, a rapid heartbeat. Your legs can go weak or muscles feeling tense. You can feel hot and it can cause some sweating. You can have a pounding head. It might make you shake, tremble or feel dizzy. It can also affect our ability to think and can be experienced as a red mist that clouds our thinking. So what does anger look like in children? They may be crying, screaming, getting easily upset. They may have tantrums and meltdowns. They may be shouting, swearing, saying hurtful things like "I hate you." Anger can lead to physical aggression such as kicking, throwing things, hitting, stomping. Children may be more moody and argumentative and defiant. Or alternatively, they may be more withdrawn, quiet, and more reluctant to do the things they normally enjoy. And sadness is another feeling that has been experienced recently. And this can also be called unhappy or down or miserable. And sadness is also understandable as a response to COVID-19. We are missing our family and friends, the things we normally enjoy, our normal routine. There may be a loss of the normal life and freedoms that we've had before. It has been associated with death and bereavement. maybe of people you know, but also the knowledge of the deaths within the local and global community can cause sadness. There may also be a feeling of a lack of hope that things will get better or return to normal. Children may be missing school and their peers. Parents may be missing their workplace and their colleagues. You may have missed out on celebrating important transitions such as birthdays, weddings, religious holidays, as well as transitioning between classes in school. Also having plans cancelled, such as social events, sports events, things that you've been working towards and looking forward to. So sadness feels like being easily upset or overly sensitive, not enjoying things you normally do, having a loss of pleasure in things, feeling empty or numb, feeling tired, lethargic, demotivated, feeling irritable and arguing more with people, or having less concentration, not being able to settle down to an activity. What does sadness look like in children? So again, they can be more clingy towards you, not wanting to be alone. They may be more easily tearful. They may be irritable or grumpy all the time. They may not be interested in things they used to enjoy, have trouble sleeping or sleep more than usual, not be able to concentrate or have difficulty making decisions, interact less with family and friends, have less confidence, and it might change their eating habits, so they might eat less or overeat. And for some children struggling to manage difficult feelings, this might lead to thoughts about harming themselves or about suicide. And if your child experiences such thoughts or desires, it is important that you take these thoughts and feelings seriously and encourage your child to talk openly about this. We would also encourage you to seek professional support. For example, you could talk to your First Steps clinician about this. But we will also be sharing some information in the resource pack at the end about services that you could contact for more support relating to this issue. As we have seen, the way that children feel affects the way they behave. For children, behaviour is often the only tool they have to express their feelings. During the pandemic, many parents have seen their children's behaviour change, and this is really challenging for you as a parent. And we see your child's behaviour as though it's the tip of an iceberg. So it's the bit you can see above the water. But beneath their behaviour is often many unseen things that are causing them to behave in this way. Some of these are maybe their feelings, some of them might be the thoughts or beliefs they have about themselves or about others or about the situation. And some of the things below the surface will be about the situation itself. And what this brings with it. But the good news is, by working out what these things beneath the surface are, you can tackle the cause of the behaviour and therefore reduce the need for a child to behave in that way. So as you may have noticed, there are crossovers between the emotions that we feel and also how they look in children. Often emotions are not standalone or distinct, meaning that you feel several emotions at any one time. For example, often anxiety and low mood are experienced together. It's also important to acknowledge that your child is not alone with their feelings. They are also being felt by you, your family, your community, the nation, and also the global community. And although that might be overwhelming to think about, it's important to remember that you're not alone with these feelings. And these feelings are normal and they're an adaptive response to the stressful situation that your child is in. But it doesn't mean to say they're not challenging. There are things that you can do to help reduce these feelings in your child so that they can manage better. And this is what we will focus on in the part 2 of this presentation. So it's an incredibly challenging time for you as parents. Parenting is one of the most challenging jobs at the best of times, but you have an even bigger challenge at the moment. So you're working whilst keeping your children occupied, helping educate them without childcare that you normally may have. On top of this, you may have been unwell yourselves or had a family member unwell or experienced bereavement. So it's no wonder you may feel even more stressed than usual. So the feelings we've already spoken about apply to you as parents also. So the anxiety, the sadness and the anger are normal and understandable as a response at the moment. And when we're really stressed and full up, taking care of ourselves can seem like low priority. But finding some time to recharge your own batteries can make a big difference to you and your child. So just like the oxygen mask on the aeroplane, you can't take care of your child if you're not taking care of yourself. So these are some ideas about how you might do that. So taking the pressure off and setting realistic expectations for yourself, such as setting small achievable goals for the day, prioritising things that must be done and put to one side things that can wait. Commit to giving yourself a brief moment of relaxation in your day, even if it's only 5 minutes, 15 minutes, just for you to recharge your energy. Reach out and ask for help from your support network and professional help if needed. And be kind to yourself. Remember that there's no such thing as perfect parenting, and you're trying your best in the most challenging of times. We'll be covering a lot of ideas around managing emotions in subsequent sections, and also providing links for ideas on self-care later as well. So we're now going to invite you to try a short relaxation exercise, and this is linking to the idea of self-care. So we invite you to notice the change in how you feel from the beginning of the exercise, so now, to when we end the exercise. So I'd invite you to sit in a comfortable, upright position in your chair, with your feet flat on the ground if possible, your arms and legs uncrossed, and your hands resting on your lap. And you can let your eyes gently close or fix them on a point in front of you. Begin by gently bringing your attention to noticing your body. Start by directing your attention to your feet. Notice the parts of your feet that are in contact with the ground. Notice the sensation of your shoes and socks on your feet. Then bring your attention to noticing the sensation of sitting in the chair. See if you can notice the sense of your weight in the chair. Maybe notice parts of your body that are in contact with the chair, and the parts of your body that don't contact the chair. If you drift off into your thoughts, simply acknowledge where your mind went and bring it back to noticing the sensation of sitting in the chair. From time to time, you may notice your attention has wandered off as you get caught up in your thoughts or other kinds of sensations. This is quite normal. It happens to everyone, and it may happen repeatedly. Each time you notice your mind has wandered, take a split second to notice where it took you, and then gently bring your awareness back to noticing your body and the sense of the weight on the chair. Next, direct your attention to your breath. See if you can notice the sensation of breathing in and out. Allow your stomach to expand and your chest to gently rise and fall. Become aware of your breath flowing in and out of your body. Simply notice the natural flow of the breath without changing or modifying it in any way. Take a few slow, deep breaths. Notice the sensation of the air filling your lungs as you breathe in and deflating as you breathe out. You may notice the sensation of cool air around your nostrils as you inhale, and the warm air as you exhale. As you do this exercise, the feelings and sensations in your body may change. You may notice pleasant feelings or sensations, such as relaxation, calmness, or peacefulness. You may notice unpleasant feelings, such as boredom, frustration, or anxiety. Whatever feelings, urges, or sensations arise, whether pleasant or unpleasant, gently acknowledge their presence and let them be. Allow them to come and go, and keep your attention on your breath and the sensation of sitting in the chair. Lastly, bring your attention back to noticing your breathing. Notice again the steady rhythm of your breath that is with you all of the time. And when you're ready, bring your attention back to the room, to the webinar. Open your eyes if they are closed, and notice what you can see, what you can hear, and push your feet into the ground and stretch, and notice yourself stretching. And welcome back. So I'm going to hand over to Nikki now for part 2 of the webinar, and I will be muting myself but staying on screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Okay, so hi everybody, this is Nikki again. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I hope you enjoyed that mindfulness exercise there with Beth, and that you're feeling hopefully a bit more relaxed, and maybe identified some of the feelings that you're experiencing at the moment. I'm going to be talking you through part 2 of the webinar this afternoon, which is about supporting your children's emotional well-being and managing difficult feelings at this time. I'm going to be presenting quite a lot of different ideas, some of which may be more or less relevant to you, depending on your situation and your child's age, for example. So we invite you just to think about what's most relevant and helpful for you, and hopefully take away some ideas and things to try. Obviously, you're the experts of your own family, so you're going to know best what's most likely to work for you and your children. Firstly, I'd like you to just take just a moment just to have a think about the feelings that you think your child might be experiencing at the moment. So that might be some of the feelings that Beth spoke about. There might be others as well. So just take a moment and just have a think and reflect on what feelings you think are around for your child at the moment. Okay, well, hopefully some of those feelings that you've identified are things that we're going to cover now. So first of all, routines and why these are important. As Beth said, we're all having to deal with a lot of uncertainty and disruption at the moment. So try and provide some certainty and normality for your child where you can. We know that predictable routines help children to feel safe and secure. So do try and get some structure to your day and include some of your child's normal routines if you can. So as much as possible, try and stick to your usual family routines like meal times, bedtimes, trying to get some difference between the weekdays and the weekends if you can. Try and include some of the activities that your child might do at school or nursery into their weekdays if possible. You might find it helpful to work out a daily timetable or schedule each day. So that's something that maybe you could do with your child in the morning or at the weekend for the following week, so that they feel some sense of control and ownership over their week and know what to expect. There are some examples of timetables in your resource pack, so you could take a look at those maybe. We advise that you do this in the way that's right for you. So some families might find lots of structure helpful, others may not, and might need things to be, more flexible. That's okay, do what works for you as a family. Remember to be reasonable and kind to yourself and try and have, as Beth said, reasonable expectations for yourself and for your child. We suggest that you prioritise getting through this crisis together as a family, looking after your own and your children's well-being and mental health, spending some quality time together, making sure that, ultimately your child feels safe and secure and loved and valued at this difficult time. Remember that all children are in this situation. If you're trying to homeschool and it's really tricky, remember that the teachers will support your child with where they're at when they're back in the classroom. So yeah, be kind to yourselves, try and be realistic, and remember that this is an extreme and unprecedented situation, and you're doing the best that you can. Looking after yourselves and getting a balance. So in order to look after our physical and emotional well-being, we need to spend some time in our days doing things that make us feel good and that are good for us. We use this acronym BASE to kind of try and help us to remember some of the things that will be important. It stands for body care, achievement, connection with others, and enjoyment. We encourage you to try and get a mix of these things in your days and weeks, and also plan things that you can look forward to in the coming days and weeks. Just a few examples. So body care, this is things that are good for our bodies and for our minds, like exercise, healthy eating and drinking, getting a decent amount of sleep, time for rest and relaxation. We know that physical activity is really good for reducing stress as well as for your physical health. We know that contact with nature has also been shown to boost mood, so try and spend some time outside with your children if you can, obviously following the government advice around that. If your child can't leave the home, or they really don't want to, encourage them to try and at least get some exercise at home if you can. There are loads of apps and videos and things online that you could try, or you could even just whack on some music and dance around. That can be good too. If your child is homeschooling, try and make sure that they get some regular movement breaks during that school day, as that can really help with their learning and their focus. And that's something that you might want to consider as well if you're trying to work from home, making sure you get those regular breaks. Generally, make sure kids get plenty of downtime, time where they can relax. They don't need to be, fully stimulated 24/7. It's important to get some downtime, and a bit of boredom doesn't hurt. Achievements, so these are things that give us a sense of accomplishment, a sense of mastery, and what that is will vary from person to person. Hopefully completing some schoolwork will give your children a sense of achievement, but you can also consider other things that will maybe help to inspire and motivate them. So for example, using some extra time at the moment to learn a new skill or research something they're interested in, or maybe do a creative project. You could set them a weekly challenge, or maybe even give them, a tour around the home to help out, things that make them feel that they've achieved something in their day. So connection with others. Obviously, it's really important to connect to the people that are important to us at the moment, you know, especially. In terms of your relationship with your child, try and enjoy, you know, some extra time at the moment to strengthen the bond between you, to play together, have fun together. Depending on who's in your house, obviously, as Beth said earlier, being together 24/7 can be, you know, too much for all of us. So you might want to make sure that you get a bit of a mix in your week. So maybe schedule some, you know, time individually with your child, so some one-to-one time with each child. Maybe sometimes where you do things together as a family, but also some time that perhaps you each spend on your own. We all need a bit of time and space on our own sometimes, so try and get a mix. And that's, you know, as Beth said earlier, especially important for you as parents to try and schedule some time to yourself, you know, if possible, if there are other adults around that can you know, help look after your child if they're young, you know, so that you get some time to yourself, or make sure that you at least get a break in the evening, do something that you enjoy, perhaps while they're sleeping. We're aware that some of you might not actually have extra time at the moment. You might actually have a lot less time than normal if you're very busy with work, for example, or extra commitments at the moment that are taking up a lot of time. But do try and schedule, you know, some quality time with your child, because it will be really important for them at the moment. Also help your child to maintain other important relationships, so with extended family, for example, with their friends, obviously in person as per, you know, government advice if possible, or if not, you know, virtually, on the phone, online. There are lots of different ways for us to stay in touch at the moment, which is good. And lastly, obviously enjoyment, things that we just really enjoy, things that give us pleasure. Play is especially important and helpful for children. It's got lots of benefits. So as well as being fun, it can help with them, give opportunities for learning. It can help strengthen the parent-child relationship when you're playing and having fun together. Play can also help children to express themselves and to make sense of things through their play. So make sure that there's plenty of time for that kind of free play. Just a quick note about screen time and internet safety. So lots of children are spending more time than usual at the moment online, and expanding the ways that they use the internet. You may well have relaxed some of your usual limits around screen time. And whilst there are obviously lots of positive things that we can use the internet for at the moment, just be aware that children can also be exposed to risks online. So we've put a link at the end to an NSPCC website where there's some advice about online safety. So do check that out if that's something that's relevant to you. This might not be a very popular suggestion with your children, but you could always consider having a set hour or two a day where the Wi-Fi gets turned off, maybe, just to, you know, inspire a bit of creativity and quality time together, rather than everybody kind of being glued to their different screens. Something to consider. Just take a moment just to review those different areas and think about the balance that you're getting in your family life, and if there are things that maybe you want to try and do more or less of. Just take a moment to have a think about that. Okay, so talking to your child about coronavirus. As Beth said, children are going to notice the huge changes that have been going on around them, and they're going to absorb things that they hear from their parents, from their peers on the news, and they need help to filter that information and to make sense of things, and reassurance that they're safe and that they're cared for. So it's really important that you explain, you know, in an age-appropriate way to help them to understand what coronavirus is, and also all the things that we need to do to keep ourselves safe, but in a way that doesn't scare them, hopefully. So, you know, trying to get that balance, which I appreciate is quite a delicate and tricky balance. As this has been going on a while, you've probably already had some conversations with your child, but we'll just touch on some tips here. First of all, we'd say it's essential that children know that they can talk to their parents at the moment about their concerns and have their questions answered. So do let your child know that when it comes to coronavirus and any questions or worries they have, you know, you want to talk to them about it and you're happy to listen. Some children might not seek out a conversation themselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not being affected by it or that they don't have worries about it. So do initiate those conversations yourself. We suggest that first of all you find out what they already know, so you can identify if there's any gaps or any misconceptions that they might have. They might have heard, some rumours or fake news or scary stories that you'll need to address with them, or it might be that they already have a good, accurate understanding. It's a good idea to follow their lead in terms of how much information to give, so let their questions be a guide to you on this. Obviously, children's capacity to understand, complex information usually increases with age. So how you talk to a 3-year-old about this is going to be very different from the conversations that you would have with your teenager. And also, it obviously involves an element of judgment about your child and what you think is going to be helpful and appropriate for them. Young children don't need to know very detailed information about the virus and the global crisis because they're going to be too young to understand it and are likely to find it scary, whereas older children will probably have heard more, hopefully be a bit more able to kind of understand what's going on and the implications it has for them. Overall, try and keep explanations simple, use age-appropriate language, stick to the facts. You can give appropriate reassurances that, for example, there are lots of adults working hard to keep them safe, and focus on the things that they can control, things they can do to protect themselves and others. You'll probably find that conversations occur in sort of bits and bobs, so you might have a short conversation, they go away, they process it, think about it, come back with new questions, and you have another conversation. That's okay, that's very normal and helpful for children. You might not know all the answers, so obviously there's lots of uncertainty around at the moment for all of us. So it's fine to say that you don't know the answers to their questions, that you can try and find out from a reliable source, but it might be that there isn't an answer to their question, and therefore it's okay to let them know that we don't know. That's okay. Reassure them that there are lots of people working on this, government, doctors, scientists that are working on this and working hard to keep us safe. Try and watch their reactions during the conversation and just sort of monitor their levels of anxiety. If it seems that they're getting really anxious during the conversation, that might be enough for now. You might want to pause things, come back to it later. Check how they're feeling at the end, reassure them that they can come back to you and can talk about this more, that the door's open in terms of a conversation. And then hopefully try and finish, maybe on a positive note, or go on and do something, nice or fun together if you can. There's loads of resources on this online around how to explain coronavirus to children of different ages, children with special needs as well. So do use those. Some of them are in the form of books, cartoons, comic strips, for example, which can be really great medium for explaining things to children because it's less threatening and something that they're used to, stories and cartoons. So yeah, we've got some examples in your pack and on the resources slide at the end. So do check some of those out if you need to. Okay, helping children to express their emotions. So as we've said, children are going to be affected by all the changes that are happening, and they're going to need some help to understand and manage the emotions that they're experiencing in response to what's happening. So make sure that they know that you're keen to talk with them about their feelings and that all feelings are welcome in your home. Ask how they're feeling and then listen carefully. Explain that these feelings are normal and they're okay. So it's normal to feel, as Beth said, sad, scared, cross, frustrated with the current situation. There might also be things they feel happy or excited about. They might be experiencing a range of different feelings, and that's okay, that's normal. You could talk about your own feelings within reason. So obviously you don't want to burden your children with lots of your own anxieties or adult worries and stresses, but letting them know that everybody, including you, feel angry, worried, sad sometimes, that's helpful. It's good for them to know that those feelings are normal. Aside from talking, there are other ways you can help your child to understand and express their feelings. So, spending time together, playing together, drawing, telling stories can all help the child to tell you how they're feeling. They might start up a conversation during the play, or they might give you some clues as to how they're feeling through their play. So, for example, by what's happening to the characters in their play. You might find that, the virus theme and death comes up in your child's play sometimes at the moment. Again, that's totally normal. It's a healthy way for young children to make sense of the world and to work out their feelings. You could read books together, watch TV and films together. That can generate discussions about the characters' feelings and consequently help them to understand their own or to talk about their own. Some families and schools like to use things like feelings charts, for example, as a way of checking in with how your child's feeling, and there's some examples of that in your pack as well. Children often find it easier to talk while they're doing something, so during play together, or maybe when you're out on a walk together, those can sometimes be good times to talk. If your child struggles to name their own feelings, then you could try sort of tentatively naming their feelings for them. So, for example, saying, I see that you're sad because you can't play with your friends at the moment, or I wonder if you're feeling, worried about going back to school next week, for example. That can help them to sort of understand their own feelings and find words for those feelings. In terms of when to talk, children might initiate a conversation themselves by talking about their worries or asking questions. And ideally, it's great to talk to them then at that time, if you can, because obviously that's a time where they feel able to and want to talk to you about how they're feeling. But that might not always be possible. For example, if you're in the middle of work, or you're very tired or stressed yourself. Also, bedtimes isn't a great time to be talking about, big things and big feelings. So, if your child raises feelings and questions at those times when it's not a good time to talk, you can let them know that this isn't a good time to talk, but that you've heard their worry and you definitely want to talk about it. So you can agree another time to come back to this, another time to talk, and stick to that. Then move on to sort of maybe something calming or distracting, especially if it's bedtime, to take their mind off it and help them to settle for the night or to move on. Okay, so now we're going to be thinking about some specific emotions, some of the ones that Beth mentioned earlier. So firstly, helping children with their worries. Firstly, it's important to be aware of your own anxieties. So we know that children are good at picking up on what's going on around them, noticing when other people around them are anxious, and they might well watch your behaviour to work out whether or not they should be anxious themselves. So do try and address your own anxieties and model a calm response for your children if you can. As Beth spoke about earlier, obviously there are lots of valid reasons that children might be feeling worried at the moment. So firstly, try and really understand what their worry is, because it might not necessarily be what you think it is. So it's good to really hear from them what their worry is. Be curious, ask questions, listen carefully. For example, what makes you feel that way? What are your worries about this? What do you think is going to happen? And then listen carefully to what they say. Check that you've understood. You can acknowledge their fears without necessarily agreeing with them. So you can say, I can see why you feel that way, or I can see why you feel worried about that. Try not to dismiss their worries by saying things like, oh, don't be silly, because that can make them feel that they're not being taken seriously, and it might make them reluctant to talk to you about it again in the future. So do try and help them to feel understood and that worries are normal. Acknowledge that this is an anxiety-provoking time for everybody, and it is normal to feel, somewhat worried. They might be experiencing some physical symptoms of anxiety. So, as Beth mentioned earlier, your child might be complaining of tummy aches, for example. And if you think that's related to anxiety, do explain that to them, that aches and pains in our bodies can be a symptom of worry and anxiety. Reassure them that that's normal and that those, that it's not dangerous. It's just a sign that we're worried. As we said earlier, obviously a certain level of anxiety and caution is appropriate at the moment. But if the worry your child is expressing is, excessive, it's unrealistic, they're overestimating, the level of threat, or they're catastrophizing about things that might happen in the future, then do help your child to challenge that worry. Remember that a worry is a thought, not necessarily a fact. So just because we think something doesn't mean that it's true. You can gently share, facts to correct any misunderstandings they might have. So if they've heard rumours, untrue rumours about coronavirus or about school, for example, do share facts to correct those misunderstandings. And you can help them to kind of evaluate the anxious thoughts and explore other ways of looking at things to try and come up with a more sort of realistic, helpful way of looking at the situation. So, for example, you could think with them about what exactly are they worried about, how likely really is it that that worry is going to come true, what else might happen if their worry did come true, what would that mean, how could they cope with that, what could they do to cope, how might other people help if that worry were to come true. Really explore it with them and work it through. If a child's expressing a worry during play, again, you might be able to use that as an opportunity to work it through with them. So, for example, acting out, what the characters could do to help themselves, or how others might help them in a worry situation. Do help your child to think about whether the worry is something they can do anything about or not. If the worry is something they can do something about, then do try and help them to feel in control where they can. So sometimes there are some practical steps that they might be able to take in dealing with their worry. So you could problem solve with them, think about possible solutions and pros and cons of each of those and what they might try. There's a template for kind of thinking about problem solving in your pack that you could use. You might be able to find out some answers to their anxious questions that would help them to feel more reassured or more in control. So, for example, if they're worried about going back to school, you could try and find out more about what it's going to be like for them when they go back to school, and maybe practice. So you could maybe go and take a walk and have a look at the new entrance, the new school entrance, for example, just to help them to know a bit more about what to expect. If their worry is something that's realistic, so for example, if you've got somebody in the family that has a significant health condition that's putting them at risk at the moment, more at risk, then there might still be some things that they could do to feel a bit better about that. So there might be things they could do to feel more connected to that person, even though they might not be able to see them, how they could reach out to that person, something they maybe could do to cheer that person up. Anything that would maybe help them to feel a bit better about, what's a genuinely difficult situation. Also focus on, what you're doing to stay safe and what other people are doing to help. If the worry is something that they can't do anything about, then it's important to gradually try and learn to tolerate that worry and to let it go and to focus on other things. I really like this phrase, worry means you suffer twice. It's something I picked up from the film Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's something that I've really held on to. To me, it sort of means that if the thing you're worried about happens, well, then you're going to suffer at that point. Why make yourself suffer twice by kind of thinking about it and imagining it, lots at the moment, making yourself suffer twice. But also that worry thing might not happen, in which case you've worried for nothing. So I like that kind of idea about, if you can't do anything about it, it's better just to try and let it go for now. You can still listen and empathise with your child's worry, but just let them know that it's not helpful to think and talk lots about worries that we can't do anything about, and it's best to try and put them to one side and let them go if you can. You can reassure your child that it's not their responsibility to deal with this, that there are governments, doctors, scientists, teachers, lots of adults that are working hard to keep people safe, and that's their job, it's not a child's job. And then try and help them to distract themselves or do something really absorbing to take their mind off it and to help them to move on. Look out for unhelpful behaviours. So there are certain behaviours which it might be easy to get into at the moment that can actually make anxiety worse in the long run. Things like constant Googling, watching the news repeatedly, really excessive checking for symptoms or extreme hand washing, or avoiding things completely, like not wanting to go out at all. Be on the lookout for those kinds of behaviours. And again, take that same approach. You can discuss them with your child, gently correct any misunderstandings, challenge the anxious thoughts that might be driving those behaviours. You can try and help them see the negative consequences. So, for example, doing that behaviour might be making them feel a bit better immediately, but actually, might be making them feel worse in the long run, or mean that they're missing out on things that they could be doing, could be enjoying. Support them to gradually reduce those behaviours. For example, you might want to put limits on the amount, that they watch the news, for example. If they're avoiding something because they're anxious about it, you could try breaking it down into, small manageable steps. So for example, if your child's afraid, of leaving the house, you could plan, a really short walk to start with, and then gradually, as they feel a bit more confident, gradually extend that, gradually helping them to face their fear, and do that plan with them, so it's something that they feel control over. Worry time. So if your child's thinking and talking about worries a lot, you could consider what we would call worry time. This is having, a set period of time a day, so maybe 20 minutes, where you sit down with your child, and you look at each of their worries in turn, and think about them and talk and work them through. That's a good way of helping children to know that their worries will be dealt with, but trying to do it in a kind of contained way, rather than, talking and asking questions kind of all through the day. You could also use something called a worry box, which there's some information about in your packs as well, so do take a look at that. Finally, highlight the good things and emphasise their strengths. So while this is obviously a genuinely challenging time for everybody at the moment, do try and help children to also recognise the positive things that are happening at the moment too, and express confidence in their ability to cope. So children will feel less anxious if they feel that they've got the ability to cope with difficulties, and that's a belief that you can help strengthen as parents by expressing your confidence in their ability to cope. Okay, so moving now on to helping children with loss. As Beth spoke about earlier, everybody is affected by coronavirus, and we've all experienced some kind of loss inevitably, even if we've been fortunate enough not to have lost anybody close to us. So do let your child know that you're keen to talk with them about these feelings of loss. Create the right space to talk. So we've already covered some tips about, when are good ways to talk. Generally, if you need to talk to your child about something that's difficult, something important, for example, illness or bereavement of somebody or important changes in relation to school, then it's important to ensure that it's a good time and place to have that conversation, a time and place where they can listen and process that information and won't get too distracted. Again, be curious, listen carefully to their answers, ask open questions, try and get a clear understanding of their perspective. Acknowledge those significant, losses for your child. So agree that, the situation of loss is unfair, that it sucks. Avoid trying to get into just looking at the positives in that moment. Try and really connect to your child's feelings, and acknowledge that loss as it feels for them. You want to empathise with them in that moment. Let them express any feelings they have about those losses. So if they're feeling, sad or really disappointed, they might need to have a good cry. They might need to, have a good shout. Let some of those feelings out. Let them know that those feelings are understandable and they're okay. Provide comfort to your child when they're feeling upset. So that might be a hug or other things that your child usually finds comforting. You can provide reassurance where appropriate. So as we said, try not to minimise the loss or their feelings about the loss, but you might be able to provide some reassurance, for example, things to look forward to, or consider things that you could do to help kind of manage or mark that loss. So for example, if we're upset about a lost event, what could you do to still make their birthday special even though they can't have that party that they wanted? Or how can they connect with their peers on what would have been the last day of school even though they can't have that last day as they would have normally had? If it's in relation to a bereavement, some people like to try and find a way of remembering or honouring a loved one through some kind of event, or creating something like a memory box. So that's something you could consider. Even if you haven't lost someone close to you, children will probably be exposed to more conversations about illness and death at the moment. So you might find that they ask questions about this possibly for the first time. So you might want to prepare a bit in advance for questions that might come up, and how you want to explain things to them. Obviously that will depend on their age and also on your family beliefs about death, and how you want them to understand it. We don't have time for lots of advice on this today, but there are lots of great websites and services available. For example, Winston's Wish, Child Bereavement UK, child bereavement charities. They've got websites with lots of great resources and advice. Also recently, the City and Hackney Covid-19 bereavement service for young people and families, St Joseph Hospice, has started, so that's something you could consider. We've got links and information at the end. Okay. Helping children with anger and difficult behaviour. So it's understandable that we're all feeling some frustration at the moment. Everybody's going to have good days, good hours, bad hours, and we're all going to need to let off steam at times. So again, try and be kind to yourself and your child, and have realistic expectations for all of you. And remember that parenting now more than ever is about doing the best you can with what you have. Providing regular opportunities to talk about their feelings, as we've covered, would hopefully prevent some of those frustrations from building up too much. But you could also be proactive by preparing as a family about, what you can all do when you're feeling stressed or cross. We can talk about and maybe practice those things when everyone's calm. So, when tempers do flare and you're in the middle of a situation, you're all a little bit more prepared for how you might deal with it. Again, there's some examples in your packs, things like feelings thermometers that you could use. If your child is showing difficult behaviour, before you react, try and take a step back if you can. Try and observe that situation. Try and understand what your child is feeling and what they're trying to communicate through their behaviour. So thinking back to Beth's iceberg, what might be going on underneath for them, and what do they need most from you right now? It might be that what they need most is some comfort. If your child's distressed and they're showing that through their behaviour, do encourage them to use your words. Encourage them to let you know through their words how they're feeling and what they need or want if they can. You can distinguish between feelings and behaviour, so you can let your child know that all feelings are normal and okay, but sometimes we need to be careful about how we express those feelings. So, for example, it's normal and it's okay to feel angry, but it's not okay to hit people, for example. We're going to be sending you a copy of our First Steps Positive Parenting Top Tips leaflet, which has got lots of ideas and strategies that you might find helpful around strengthening the parent-child relationship, encouraging behaviours you want, and discouraging, inappropriate behaviours. So do take a look at that, but just cover a few points from the leaflet. So first, positive attention, praise, rewards to encourage appropriate behaviour. So do really try and notice and praise the things that your child is doing well at the moment. It's very easy to notice when they're misbehaving, but really try and notice those times where they are behaving, when things are going well and they're cooperating. And give specific praise if you can. Really name what it is that you're seeing that you like. So thank you for tidying away your toys. Well done for getting that piece of schoolwork done this morning, for example. You could consider a reward system for behaviours that you really want to, encourage and work on at the moment. Distraction and redirection. This is all about catching the behaviour early. So if you see that your child's, getting frustrated, they're on the verge of a tantrum, try and get in there quick and distract them with a different toy or activity or something else to think or talk about. Ignoring. So I'm sure some of your child's behaviours are really annoying and not as you would ideally like them to be, but maybe they're not a priority, they're not dangerous. Now's a particularly good time to pick your battles. So focus on what's most important and let go of what you can. You might need to be more flexible with some of your usual limits, and that's okay. Do remember that these are exceptional times that we're in at the moment. But there might be some behaviours you can't ignore. If your child's breaking an important family rule, doing something really inappropriate, then you might want to consider giving a consequence for that, so that they learn that that's not okay and that there are consequences for their actions. And there's some examples in the leaflet, but do try and make sure your child knows what the rules are and what the consequences will be in advance, so that they know where they stand. Try and identify when tempers are starting to rise. So try and keep calm yourself at those times if you can. I know it's easier said than done, but before you respond, as we said, try and take that step back, take a few deep breaths, take a moment to think about what's going on and the most helpful way to respond if you can. Try and get that control. If things are really escalating, it might be helpful to suggest, some time apart to calm down, as long as your child isn't doing anything dangerous, because it can be really hard for all of us to think straight when you're in the middle of that situation, and sometimes you just need a bit of time to yourself. You can model that for your child. You can explain, Mummy and Daddy's feeling a bit cross right now. It's okay. I'm just going to take 5 minutes in my bedroom to relax. Try and come back together later on, and talk about it if you need to, or make up and move on. Overall, try not to judge yourself or your child too harshly at the moment. Adding lots of layers of guilt and worry on top of everything else isn't going to be helpful. Remind yourself that these are exceptional circumstances. None of us have been in this situation before, and you're doing your best as a parent. Just finally, just a few ideas around stress and anxiety management strategies. So we've focused a lot so far on talking about feelings, and obviously that's important. But here we consider some other ways of managing stress and difficult feelings. Overall, see what works best for your child. Do other things that usually work for them. You could maybe draw up with your child a poster of things that help us with, our worries, or when we're feeling upset, and keep it somewhere up in the house, somewhere close by as a reminder in those moments that they can remember things that they can do to help themselves. We've also already covered the benefits of physical activity and play, and expressing feelings non-verbally. We've spoken about a bit already, through drawing, writing, could be music, poetry. They might want to keep a feelings diary, for example. Relaxation is really important for your body and for your mind. That might be formal relaxation exercises, breathing exercises, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, like we practiced earlier. There's loads available online, and also some resources at the end. So try things out, see what works best for your child. Try and build some relaxation into their regular routine. Maybe do it together as a family. Distraction. So as we've said, talking about and expressing feelings is obviously really important, but there's also a time and a place for just trying to take our minds off of our worries and our upsets, and doing something else, something that we enjoy, something that they find really engrossing, something that will take their mind off, those tough things. Positive imagery is something you could consider. So, children usually have great imagination, so try and use that to their advantage. So if they're feeling, worried or upset, they might want to imagine, a safe place or a favourite place that they can go to in their mind, or a favourite memory or something they're looking forward to. Really encourage them to imagine it in detail and imagine that they're there. That can be really helpful. That's something they could just do for themselves, or there are sort of guided imagery exercises online that you could use to help with that. Comfort. So these are things that we find really comforting and nurturing. Bubble bath, massage, snuggling up together, cuddles, maybe their favourite comfort toy or blanket, things that make them feel kind of warm and comforted. Really nice things. You could consider creating a safe space in the home that's just for them. So if they're feeling kind of really overwhelmed, or they just need some time for themselves, maybe they could have a little den or something you can make with some sheets, maybe somewhere in the house, and they could have some of their favourite kind of snuggly, relaxing things in there, and that could be a place where they could go. And you might also want to have your own version, maybe, where you could go when you need that bit of time out. So just some ideas there to consider and to try out maybe. So obviously earlier we had a practice with an adult kind of relaxation exercise. We just wanted to go through a quick example of one for children with you. We thought maybe you could have a go at doing it along with the clip, and maybe practice it with your child later, or one of the other versions. So this is a, if I can get to it, guided relaxation exercise for children from Cosmic Kids, called Starfish. So do have a go along with the clip.
Peace out. Starfish. Hello, Jamie here. Welcome to Peace Out. First, find yourself a space on the floor to lie down, big enough so you can have your legs and arms stretched out in a star shape. To start off, just be in a relaxed star shape. Get settled and do any last fidgets you need to do to feel happy and comfortable here. Take a couple of nice deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And with this next breath out, let your eyes gently close. Well done. Now you're settled, you're ready to be a starfish. Can you imagine a starfish with 5 points coming out from its centre? Choose what colour you'd like it to be. Starfish can be all sorts of colours, so make it the colour you'd like. You can make it patterned too if you like, spotty or stripy, maybe even sparkly with glitter. Good job. What a great starfish you have in your mind. Now see if you can make your body just like the starfish in your imagination. Make the shape with your body. Your legs are 2 of the points, your arms are the other 2, and your neck and head are the 5th point. Now fill yourself with the colour you chose, and if you added a pattern, put that on too. That's it. Starfish are amazing creatures. Everything happens in the middle of their body. Their mouth is in the middle, their tummy is in the middle, and they breathe from the middle as well. Just like a starfish, we can breathe from our middles too when we want to. Let's try starfish breathing and see if we can make our breath go from our middle and reach right to the end of our star points. Start by breathing out all the air inside you, so you're completely empty. Now start to breathe in, and notice as your middle starts to fill, your breath also spreads and starts to stretch the 5 points of your star right out. Your arms and legs stretching out, your head and neck stretching up. And now breathe out, relaxing your body as the breath leaves and your tummy goes down. Try it again, breathing in deeply and slowly, the breath stretching the 5 points of your star right to your fingers, toes, and up to the top of your head, and relax, letting it all go. Your star points spread, but nice and floppy. One more big starfish breath from your middle. Breathe in, filling all the way up, stretching to the ends of your star shape. Stretch, 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 and relax, letting it all go. Well done. You've done some great starfish breathing, and your body has had a good stretch too. Enjoy letting your breath be normal again, and notice the restful, calm feeling that has come from this lovely stretching and breathing. It's quite nice being a starfish, isn't it? Now we come back. Hear the sounds around you. Slowly start to wiggle your fingers and toes and roll your wrists and ankles around in a circle. That's it. Roll over onto your side and push yourself up to sit. Open your eyes and take a moment to be pleased with yourself for doing something good for yourself, for your body and mind. I hope to see you soon. This is Jamie, saying peace out.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. So just one last slide before we pass over to Hannah. So just about getting more help. So unfortunately, some children and young people are going to find this situation, inevitably more difficult to deal with than others. So for example, if they were already experiencing some struggles with emotions, behaviour, relationships, then this situation might have made that even worse. So if you are concerned about your child, do consider getting more help. As Beth said, those of you watching this webinar today are all open to first steps already. So do discuss your concerns with the clinician that you're working with or the person that you spoke to on the phone. If you're watching this webinar online, then you can discuss your concerns with your child's GP or other health professional or their school. They'd all be able to organise referrals to get more help, or you could take a look at your local CAMHS and council websites for more information about services and how to access them. There's lots of information about Hackney local services in the City and Hackney CCG document that's in your packs, and there's a link on the final slide. And there's also the City and Hackney mental health crisis line that you could call at any time if you're really concerned and you need advice quickly. If your child's experiencing difficulties with virtual schoolwork, so either the motivation to do it or difficulties with the work itself, or worries about returning to school, then do contact their school directly for advice. Or there's also the Hackney Educational Psychology Service that you could contact through their advice line. And we're also at First Steps going to have some more webinars coming up soon, videos for teenagers, some webinars about transitions and for parents of teenagers and young children as well. So do keep an eye out for those.